Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy. I am so excited for today's guest. So with me today, I have Mr. Tom Goodlet. Tom is all things. He's a pastor, he's a friend, he's a brilliant businessman, he's a consultant, and he's a published author and a publisher and kind of a jack of all trades. So Tom, I'm so excited that you decided to join us today, and I hope you're ready to jump right in. You ready to go?
Let's do this, Christy. I'm excited to be here. And I am a fan of Dr. Christy McMullen.
Thanks. Well, the feeling is mutual. I think Tom and I get along well because we're almost exactly the same age. So we understand all the same references. We just get it, right? Same cartoons.
90s rap, right? Is that the
90s rap does make me happy. Yes. So Tom, my first question for you.
Okay. Yes.
Podcast listeners can listen to a whole lot of different things. And so I need you to convince them to keep listening by telling us your story in a way that people might want to hear. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
All right. Well, if you stay to the end of my story, then there's a prize.
Oh,
yeah, there you go. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Now I got to come up with a prize. All right. Hey, honestly, I would say my story, or at least the turn of my story in most recent years, last 5 years, really started with a book. And now I didn't know it was going to be, but so I'd been in ministry at that time, probably about almost 15 years in vocational ministry. And that was my passion. That's where I felt God was leading me and working through me. But I felt the desire to not go more and more into the church, but I felt God's kind of pull to bring me more out beyond the walls of the church. And so I kind of felt the calling in my heart that I could put into words as to bring biblical principles into secular industries. I knew that much. I also was working with a senior pastor who his response when I eventually told him the dream said, "Great, we don't lose you." So I thought that was nice. So I wasn't like getting fired because I had something else that was taking me beyond the walls of the church. And he said, "Well, go at whatever pace you want." So then it was kind of figuring out, well, what does that look like? And inside the walls of the church, I always enjoyed leadership development. That's always been a passion. Somebody early on in my career poured into me, and it was life-changing, and yeah, wanted to help do that for other people. So I say it ended up leading to a book because I was trying to find a way to kind of get a message out there and let people know I had a message that wasn't just from a stage and delivering a sermon. And so, hey, I strategically placed that book right there. Blind Potential was actually the book there. It became a bestseller on Amazon, which was something, a lot of times if you see somebody who has a bestseller anywhere, they learned skills and techniques and processes how to do that. That didn't happen overnight. And so I had to learn some things in order to pull that off. And then once that happened, I had several people ask me, "Hey, could you help me with that?" That turned into a publishing company. Wasn't trying to get into book publishing, just wanted to help people. And so that became a publishing company, started in 2019. And then it was, well, I get bored with things quickly. So I knew there was coming a day where I wasn't going to want to be so involved in the publishing company. And so it read some other cool books to help me learn how to, work on the company, not in the company. And I eventually got myself out of my own publishing company where I own it, but don't run it. And I'd still get to enjoy the paycheck and privileges of owning it. And then while I was doing that, I had other people say, "Hey, could you help me do that?" And so it turned into consulting really at the end of the day. And so I'll say this, we have a family mission statement for the Goodlets, and that is to help people have fun and honor God. And those are three things that are important to us. And so any of the moves I've made, it's had to fit those criteria. So whether or not it was helping people who wanted to do something that looked like I just learned how to do, great, that's helping people. But always in a way that was fun and God honored as well. So there, how's that? That work?
Yeah, you just gave me all kinds of different directions I can go right now, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So help people have fun and honor God. And that's what you talk about with your kids, with your wife, with your family, but you live it. And I've watched you. You definitely are going to be having fun, like whatever you're doing, which I mean is apropos here since we're talking about productive joy. You've turned your fun into a career. And so I bet there are other people that are listening right now that might want to do exactly that. Like, how do you take your talents that you have fun doing, that you enjoy doing, and turn them into something that can actually be revenue generating?
That's great. That's a great question. So So one thing jumps to mind right away, and that is you got to know what fills you up. And not everybody, some people are going to hear the word fun and are like, I don't know, I don't like fun things. If there's a karaoke stage, count me out. Like they're not entering the hula hoop contest or something. And that's fine for that personality, but there's other things that do fill up that personality and or do fill up that person. And so a lot of times things stem back to self-awareness.
Mm.
There's all these studies, including one that came out of Cornell University, 2014, 2016, about a 2-year study trying to find a predictor of success. And that shows up as the number one predictor of success, whether or not anybody's going to be successful, if anybody's going to have a chance at generating income, especially with an idea. And it goes back to self-awareness. How well do you know you? And that's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
Because we grow, we change, we experience things, we adapt, we evolve in ways. And so we're always learning more about ourselves. Better we understand us, better we can understand the people around us. Better we can manage us, better we can manage the people around us. So I guess the first part, long answer, sorry to your short question, but I think it's kind of understanding, well, what's fun to you or what fills you up, and really understanding that about yourself, because people pick up on that.
Yeah.
So whatever you do, whatever you decide to do, you better make sure you enjoy doing it. And because if you're miserable, it's kind of like putting the air hose on you first. If you're going to help people, you got to be filling up in order to pour out and to do that. And so it starts with finding what's fun for you, what's filling up for you. And then it's finding the people who need that in order to make that lucrative.
So you found your audience by figuring out what was fun to you and then breeding that. My second book that I have published with Two Penny Publishing is called Make Work Fun, so people don't quit. And I've honed my definition of fun. My definition of fun is that people feel valued and appreciated, that they know they have a voice and that they're allowed to use that voice to be heard, and that their talents are being leveraged so that they can contribute to the greater good. And what I just heard you say can be summed up into self-awareness, right? People know that they are able to speak what they bring to the table and that somebody is going to listen to them. So I think, as I mentioned before, I think our brains work pretty closely aligned, at least.
Well, and I want to throw that I love that definition, by the way. I love that. And I want to throw in room for trial and error into that.
Oh,
So because if I'm honest, I'm like, I know I want to get beyond the walls of the church, and it landed on a book. But it actually started, I started with a website, and it started with, I'm going to work with people online and just coach them in general. And I right away, I picked up 3 clients right away and worked with them over the course of a summer and realized I don't like this. or I don't like all of this. And part of what I had to learn was, well, I like things that have a start and an end. And so so I had to learn that about myself. I like, and then you have something to show for it, that we both agree, wow, that came out of that. And so that helps me, because then I feel like, I am producing something that's undeniably helpful and good. And there's a plan in place. There's a start. We're going to start here. We're going to end here. And look, Christy's got a book. Or look, now you're able to go from a 40 hour work week to 25 hours, and you've got this time and you've handed off to people. Like that, there's goals, there's strategies, there's plans. And so I've realized about myself that just working with people, I enjoy people. It's fun, but it's not as much fun as actually winning with people and hitting defined goals and hitting defined achievements. And a lot of times when you can even hold it in your hand, even all the better.
Yeah. Okay. So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, so is your favorite chore mowing the lawn or vacuuming or something that you can actually see that you've completed something? Maybe doing the dishes. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, all 3. But doing the dishes, man, I would say is probably my least favorite, but the most appreciated by my wife. So I probably do. Yeah.
Acts of service. Well done.
Yeah. So there's benefit.
Okay. I said I had 2 questions though. Here's my second question.
Okay.
I know
So
that you're a big. Oh, go ahead. You do like mowing the lawn?
Well, here's the thing. So I have 2 teenage boys and who have their own lawn business, and I've enjoyed handing that off and letting them build their business to it. But if they're not around, I sneak and mow the lawn because I love to see it.
It is. There's something about it. It's very satisfying for sure. Okay. So my other question has to do with personality traits, because I know you work very closely with the Wired This Way personalities, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But I just recently did the Clifton Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
And I had not ever done that before. I swear the two things that it actually said in words about me is that I like to make work fun and that I that I like to make learning stick. And those are literally the names of my two books. Like I was like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
this is reading my mail. So here's my question to you. Have you
Okay.
ever done the Clifton Strengths Finder?
Yes.
Are you woo?
I was about to ask you, how much woo are you?
Oh
I was
my
totally
gosh.
gonna ask, how much woo are you? Yes.
So,
Yes.
so for
I
those who
have.
don't know, woo is winning others over, and I am definitely woo, but that's only my fourth one. It's not my first one. Communication was my first.
So I actually took it like 20 years ago. And I've taken it. I took it last year again, and woo was strong both times.
Yeah.
So that, yeah. The interesting thing was a lot of my, and then I guess there's subcategories to it as
Yes.
well. So my number one was actually, I think, futuristic or future based or foresee, but it was the only one in that category. It was my number one, and all the rest were influential type things of winning people over and all that.
Tom, that's
So
funny because that's me all the way. I was also
there you go.
futuristic. That was number
Okay.
5 for me.
Yep.
But they were all, 2 were in influencing, 2 were in strategic thinking, and 1 was in building relationships. And I was kind of upset. I was like, shouldn't more be in building relationships? But no, because the influencing, and here's why I brought up woo. You said you like to start and finish a project, and a woo person wants to start a conversation, make friends, and then move on. Like, I don't need to go deep with you. I just need to understand the surface of things. And I will go deep with you, but I'm also okay to hand you off to somebody else, and so that you can build relationships with others. That's how I use my woo. And I've seen you actually do kind of that as well.
Yeah, and I would look at it, and I know my personality, your personality, sometimes we get the rap of, or I'll say somebody who has our personalities but not very self-aware can be accused of using people.
Yes.
All
Or
right.
being just
Or
a lot,
manipulation.
right? Yeah.
Right. And honestly, one of my favorite definitions of leadership of all time is leadership is the art of getting things done through other people.
Mm.
So I love that. I love the image of Tom Sawyer getting everybody else to paint the fence and thank him for it. That goes with my personality, but I want people to enjoy it. So if it's not like, so there's that part of my personality too, that if you're not enjoying what you're doing, if you're not properly placed and don't feel like you're in your strength zone, or even when you're saying fun, where you feel like you're valued and really contributing, then that's really not fun for me either.
Right.
I don't enjoy that. The idea, but the idea of, I look at myself, I especially in the last few years, I try to keep a close friends list.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did something a couple years back. I did 2 years in a row where I called it 10 for 10. And it was at pivotal times in business, or pivotal times in where I was going next in my career. And what I realized is I had 10 questions that I wanted to ask 10 of my guy friends.
Mm.
And so what I did, I associate both at that time, and she went ahead and scheduled me 10 lunches with these 10 guys. Lunch is on me. The deal is I've got 10 questions, and I would just go and ask them and just take notes. And I did it for 2 years in a row. The questions may have changed slightly from year to year, but oh my goodness, the amount of information I got in a short time, and the ability to just, a lot of these guys are still some of my biggest cheerleaders, and me for them, and so forth. And so I value relationship. But I had a mentor. I've had several mentors in my life, but one mentor in particular where I kind of realized, I had this guilty conversation with him where I'm going, hey, we've been doing this for about a year, and I kind of think I know what you're going to say next.
Mm.
And I wonder if it's time for me to move to try something else. In other words, I think I've learned like the best stuff you have. And his hope, and what he said to me is, if I wasn't doing my job well, then it wouldn't be time for you to leave.
Wow.
And the idea that sometimes it's okay for people to be in your life for a particular season,
Yeah.
and for you to, it's great if it's a symbiotic relationship, or it's great if it's I don't want to call it parasitic, but in this case, I'm leaning from the mentor, but at the same time, they feel purpose, and that they're able to pass on what they've got to learn. And then I've got to play that role for other people as well. But I really love that and cherish that sometimes sometimes it's important to work with different people to
Yes.
get different areas of knowledge. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's always okay to, the adage is, once you go deep with somebody, you're always deep.
Yeah.
And I hold on to that there's a lot of people I feel like can pick up the phone or hop on a Zoom call, and we just pick right up where we left off. And so,
Yeah. Well, and I
what
will say, knowing you, you do have the power to make people know that you are going deep and that you do care and that you aren't just a flash in the pan. I do think our personalities are such that you could feel that way because we're outgoing and loud and here we go. But the reality is that we do care and we do want very much for people to know. So you actually said something to me before we started that I think is a good segue here. And that's, I asked you, what do you really want people to know? And you said that you can't do this alone. And by this, build a business, do life,
Yep.
whatever. What did you mean by that? Why can't you do it alone?
So, one, I think it's a fact of the universe. All right. So let's start there. I think we often find ourselves, and by the way, people who tend to start businesses tend to chase autonomy, right? We
Mm.
tend to chase this idea that I don't want a boss anymore. I don't want somebody else telling me what to do. I don't want this. And then we realize, well, I don't know how to design a website. I need somebody's help. I don't know how to do the books I need somebody else's help. I'm messing this up. And, eh, and then what happens too is we start getting clients, we start getting customers, and we're like, well, I can't lose them. They pay my bills, or they do. It's like, now all of a sudden I had a friend one time said, I quit my job to get rid of one terrible boss, and I picked up like 100. I've got all these needy customers that need
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And so autonomy, we pursue it, but it's an unworthy pursuit because we never arrive at it. And I would argue from a biblical perspective, we were never created for it.
Ah,
That we were always created for community. In fact, I'll go, if I could play the pastor card, if I go back to Genesis, I'd say the first problem that shows up in creation wasn't sin. God creates things, keeps going, this is good, this is good. In Genesis 2:18, for the first time, God says something is not good. He says it's not good for the man to be alone.
mm.
So the first problem in our human history isn't sin, it's loneliness. We're not meant to be alone. And so his answer is to create somebody who will complement him, who will be strong where the man is weak, and so forth. And there's complementary relationships. And so research and studies show over and over, we have more success when we embrace the fact that we can't do it on our own.
Hmm.
We're willing to ask for help, when we're willing to just be transparent with people, when we're willing to share struggles, when we're willing to challenge each other. And that's done through relationship. And I believe there's, and I teach it too, but there are high end relationship skills that if we can harness those, it even multiplies the effects of the people we're connected to, and the conversations we have, and the quality of relationships, and information, and ways in which we can help each other.
I'm glad you took us to church, Pastor Tom.
That
That was
can't let it
perfect.
go. Yeah.
That was perfect. Well, and we're not made to do it alone. And I think the other thing that is important to remember is that the people that are alongside you might not look the same year over year. You talked about the guy that had kind of gleaned all you were going to glean from him. It didn't mean he wasn't of value. It meant that you had learned what you were supposed to learn from that person. And I think there's power in that too. So I'm going to switch gears just a little and ask you a question that I think you're going to have a pretty fun answer to, especially when I think about your lawn mowing and your dishwashing for the sake of your wife, and you're building a business. And that's when you hear productive joy, what does that mean to you? What's your definition if you had to define productive joy?
Well, the first thing that actually comes to my mind is that that sweet experience where those rare times you're like, whoa, I knocked out like 5 things today that I thought there was no time to get all 5 done, and a lot of times something lands that you weren't planning on landing and stuff like that. Like the choleric in me is like, oh yeah, I got so much conquered and done today. That joy. But I think on the other end too, I look at the idea of moving the needle forward is productive, feeling like things are moving in a forward direction. And it doesn't mean that sometimes things won't feel like they're moving backwards.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times what distinguishes good leaders from great leaders is whenever, look, things are going to happen that we don't expect, that we wish were different, that we weren't counting on that. Yeah. And we have to grieve that. That has to be grieved. Loss has to be grieved. We have to take the time to grieve it It helps to not grieve it alone. I think that's another time when you use people to do that.
Yeah.
But what a great leader then does is go, okay, I've grieved the loss, but what does this now make possible?
Mm,
What does this now make possible? What can I now start to learn? What kind of door does this open up for me? What kind of new thought does this matter? Or who do I need to go get on my team so I can start learning something new? Or what book do I need to pick up to deal with this? Or what thing? And so I think when I think of productive joy, I think of taking the good moments and the bad moments and all finding a way to use them to move forward. And
love that.
that seems fulfilling and that seems joyful.
Oh, I love that. And I have, again, seen you do it. Whether you were starting business number 1, 2, or 3, you learn from your mistakes and you fail forward. And I think there's power in that. And that's what you coach people to do also, right? So Two Penny Consulting coaches
Yes.
people to fail forward and to try new things. But I know it's much more than that. So why don't you tell us what Two Penny Consulting does?
Okay. So Two Penny Consulting, we really do 3 things. And one is there's a high-end leadership course called Leader Effectiveness Training. Now, out of all the leadership courses I've ever taken, this one by far is my favorite. I had somebody I consider a mentor who poured it into me. It forever changed my life. And it's a set of skills that they are a little bit counterintuitive. And the reason is because we learn, we repeat what we know until we learn something better.
Yes.
And so it's kind of an eye opener when you find better, like, oh, there's a much better way to handle this conflict. There's a much better way to present what I care about and my needs without necessarily injuring the relationship of somebody with me. There's ways to get people on board and still get needs met and still have wins. And so anyway, so this class teaches that. So I'm a trainer of this course. Now I get the label master trainer facilitator. So I get
Fancy.
but I get to help other people learn it too as well. And there's only a few of us here in the United States and in the world that can do that. So that's a fun opportunity. But anyway, so we have this course. So we teach this training. Also have 7 refreshers. In other words, that I've inherited, revamped. And so they hone in on 7 different leadership skills. So I get to go around and work with organizations, train their staff, train their leaders, train their people in some high-end leadership skills that is very interactive, a lot of fun, highly engaging, but will also hurt your brain by the time you're gone because you have taken in so much, you've exercised such a muscle, but you have something to go with. Number 2, what we do is we have a system to go back months later and track how well those people we taught are demonstrating those skills.
Love it.
Where are they excelling? Where are they struggling? And help them come up with a personal plan to play to their strengths, compensate for where those struggles are so that they can see better scores the next year. So we have a whole tracking program there. And then the last piece, we got training, tracking, and the last piece will be troubleshooting. Getting to go one-on-one, kind of laser in, work with people on their goals, on their leadership skills specifically. My goal is always this, that the people who know me, I want to win. And that if you spend any time with me, your day gets better. And those are just personal goals and choices. And I get to really hone in and do that when we go in with the troubleshooting. We'll work one-on-one with people on the executive suite, or we'll work one-on-one with people in management or new business owners, just anybody who's got a challenge and needs somebody else in the room with them. And we all do, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you any idea that I've come up with or we've built or whatever, there's always somebody else in the room with me that I could bounce it off, try it out. And again, we do better with other people than we need.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you're a big fan of alliteration. So you have training, tracking, and troubleshooting. You also have help people have fun and honor God.
Yep.
Even though those H's all make different sounds. I'm impressed with your alliterative skills. I don't know if that's a word. Your ability to create alliteration. Well done. Well done. Well, believe it or not, we have managed to talk for 30 minutes, which is not at all shocking. But I do have a couple closing questions for you. And then I want to make sure people can find you because I have experienced LET, the Leader Effectiveness Training. It is incredible. And everybody needs to call you and say, hey, we need to do this together. So here are my questions for you.
Yeah.
What is your definition of fun?
Man, well, I don't even think I come close to topping yours. So
no, but it doesn't need to be mine. What is your definition of fun?
if you're smiling, if you're laughing, if you've lost track of time, you've had fun.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Hmm. How do you channel your best self on your worst days? My honest answer is it starts by having a conversation with God.
Mm.
That's where my day starts. Filling up it with your relationship with Him, then with the important people in your life, your spouse, kids, and then you can go help the other people. But you got to fill up in order to pour out, no
Yeah.
matter what it's like. Yeah.
Can't pour from an empty cup. That's absolutely true.
You know,
All
yep.
right. And then I alluded to this earlier, but let's see if your answer changed. What do you
Okay.
want people to remember about this podcast? If you get one thing that they walk away with, what is it?
I think I'll stick with my answer. You can't do it alone. And actually, I'll give a story to illustrate that.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So this isn't my story. I've heard Dr. Henry Cloud use this story before. This study, it's an actual study, and it basically they were testing stress levels on monkeys in this study. And so what they did was they had these monkeys in cages, and they purposely would surprise them. They would flash bright lights. They would bang pots and pans, loud noises, freak out the monkeys, and then measure their cortisol levels and
Sure.
see how stressed they were. And then they would do that, and then they would see if they could find ways to de-stress monkeys. All right, de-stress so that to help them lower those cortisol levels. And they try all these different ways to do it, and they find one method that when the monkeys have the flashlights going at them and the loud noises, they're freaking out, that it reduced their stress by 50%.
Wow.
It's all level by 50%. The one thing they learned is that if you want to reduce the monkey's stress by 50%, you put another monkey in their cage.
Wow.
And so that one has stuck with me, and I've lived it and I believe it. And that is if you want to go farther faster, if you want to help deal with the bad days in a good way, you need another monkey in your cage. And so that's something I enjoy being for other people. And I have other people who are that for me. And I believe that's how we were designed. That's what we need. And the sooner we accept it is the sooner we move forward faster and get to enjoy some of the freedoms and great wonders of this life.
That was just beautifully stated. Mic drop. Well done. Well done. So here's my question. How can people find you if they want to do an LET training or want to learn more about Two Penny Consulting or just more about you, Tom?
So we'll keep it simple. So let's go to, I've got to find twopennyconsulting.com, TWO pennyconsulting.com. If you go there, you can read all about and have dig as deep as you want to with links on LET and what it is and what we do. You'll see the training, tracking, troubleshooting. There'll be an opportunity to set up a consult with me. You just hit that button at the top of the page to set up a consult, and we'll set up a time and chat and can move farther into that. You can even go to about the staff. Hey, your picture is going to be on there. They can learn about you, see what you're doing. But mine's there too, and you can see the books I've written. You can listen to podcasts I've had, sermons I've said. You can explore my life and those kind of things as much or as little as you want. But that's really the central hub of where you'll find the best information, and that's twopennyconsulting.com.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, Tom, so much for your time today. And thank you for pouring into other people. I'm one of the people that you were kind enough to pour into, and it really has just changed the trajectory of my life. So thank you for that. And for our listeners, we are so pleased that you spent the last 30 minutes with us, and we hope you'll come back again because this podcast is where fun meets action.